Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's FPC Radio Live. It's Friday. We're here to wrap up yet another absolutely wild week in the NFL. We have another trade to talk about. No, we're not talking about Deshaun Watson. That's old news. I know he's being introduced today in a press conference at 1 o'clock, but the way this NFL offseason is going, that is very much old news in the past. No, we're talking about yet another blockbuster trade in the league, and that is Tyreek Hill, former Chiefs wide receiver, being shipped to the Miami Dolphins for 5 draft picks. And once again, John, another day, another league-altering move to really get our our appetite wet for this NFL offseason.
Yeah, it feels like the NBA, and even more so. We've got superstars moving, it seems like every day. You could look at the players that have changed teams this year and form an all-pro team. That's how talented these guys are. I mean, look, Davante Adams is on a new team and Tyreek Hill's on a new team. Those have probably been the two best wide receivers over the last 3 or 4 years in totality. I mean, they've been both extremely productive, and obviously their new contracts show that. 4 years, $120 million for Tyreek Hill. Look at what Miami gave up to get him: a first, a second, 2 fourths, and a sixth. That's even more than Green Bay got for Davante Adams. I'm sure Green Bay's kicking itself saying, geez, we could have got even more than a first and a second for Davante Adams. But yeah, now Miami's in play. You've got Jalen Waddle, so that's a scary duo of wide receivers. The only unfortunate thing is you've got Tua throwing him the football.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of Tua, so I don't know how he's going to maximize their talents, except he's accurate. He can get the ball to those guys in space, and they can create a lot of yards after catch.
Well, I felt like Jim Carrey from Liar Liar when he was in the courtroom and he yells liar, when Tyreek Hill says yesterday that Tua is the most accurate quarterback in the league. I almost spit out whatever the hell I was drinking. I don't even remember. I understand. Look, he's pumping up his quarterback. I get it. I'm not going to fault him for that. But one, no, he is not the most accurate quarterback in the league. But two, maybe this speaks volumes about the accuracy of his former quarterback. And that's been kind of one of the, I guess my biggest knock on him is his inconsistent accuracy. He's very consistently inconsistent, let's put it that way. And he did benefit a lot from, guys like Tyreek Hill. So maybe Tua does benefit greatly from that. I mean, and again, adding a receiver of Tyreek Hill's ilk obviously is going to make your quarterback better. But there's a certain level of responsibility that now, falls on Tua's shoulders because, there's no more excuses. Like, he has talent around him, and I'm with you. I'm not the biggest Tua fan. It's like, people are putting out the graphics of the wide receivers, and my first thought is like, well, who's throwing to him? Like, look, the rumor was that the Jets and the Chiefs were originally, discussing a trade, and look, I would take Zach Wilson over Tua right now. Now, again, neither of them are sure things, and I'm basing, a lot of this on still that level of uncertainty when it comes to what Zach Wilson's going to be. I kind of feel like we're seeing, or we've already seen what Tua is, and it's not just like the physical limitations, but we're, I just don't know. I've never been a big fan of his game. I thought it was a little bit overhyped coming into the league. The whole tank for Tua thing, I mean, that seems like a distant memory. No, actually, no, not really for the Dolphins, because let's not forget that they are still being looked at for reportedly, offering Brian Flores money to tank games. But look, I mean, this makes Miami stronger. I still think Buffalo is clearly the best team in the division because, again, I have no clue what the quarterback's going to be. I have no clue. So if Tua is just what he has been, well, Miami is a third place team. I mean, it is what it is. Because if Tua is what he is, or what we've seen, then that's it. I don't imagine he's going to be able to elevate, and I don't care. And this goes back to the you can have as much talent in the world, but you have to have a good quarterback. You don't have to have a great quarterback. I mean, you can get by with a decent quarterback if you have a lot of talent. Now, again, I don't know how how much long-term success you're going to have, but you can win some games certainly during the regular season. If you want to win a Super Bowl, you have to have elite quarterback play, and I don't know if Tua is going to provide that.
No, I don't think he ever gets there. And again, Miami must wake up, well, as an organization in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, saying we could have had Justin Herbert instead of Tua. I mean, just think of Justin Herbert on that team now with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and an improved offensive line and a good defense. That's a completely different team at that point. And all I've been hearing is, well, now this is how Tua was successful at Alabama with speedy receivers who could get separation. Okay, let me know when let me know when Miami's playing Vanderbilt at any time.
I was going to say, when are they going to start building their schedule so they can face the Lions, the the Bears? Oh wait, I'm just naming the NFC North right now.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a great point too. It's like, and that's why, like, it's so hard to draw those comparisons between college and the NFL, because it's like, yeah, great, Tua did all this great stuff, but again, I mean, the competition is just not even close. I mean, first of all, these colleges pick and choose. Yeah, they're going to have obviously big matchups because it's Alabama, so you're going to have some marquee matchups against ranked teams and all that stuff. But I mean, you get to kind of pick your schedule. It's like Alabama's obviously going to have the most talent in a lot of situations. The talent balance is way out of whack. So, yeah, it's nice, and you can certainly accomplish things in college, and it should, hopefully translate to the NFL. But, to sit there and people now say, well, see, this is how he succeeded in college. No, you bring up a great point. Yeah, well, yeah, let me know when he's playing Vanderbilt, to your point. And Uncle Skip would be a little upset because I'm pretty sure he's a Vanderbilt guy. I should probably know that. Yeah, I was going to say I should probably know that if I hope to get some inheritance at some point.
Well, there's an endowment there in your name as well as his, so I'm sure you'll get into that at some point. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a Tua guy. I've never really been fans of small quarterbacks. I just think that give me the 6'5" guy or give me the 6'3" guy or whatever.
Small mobile quarterbacks, and again, this is I feel like I'm pretty consistent with this. That's the exact opposite of what I want from a quarterback. I want a pocket quarterback who's tall, because again, there's a lot of big people in the NFL. You need to be able to see, it's unfortunate that he has physical limitations, but look, I mean, to pretend like it's not a factor is silly, because I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, maybe with Russell Wilson. I mean, who knows? Insert random mobile short quarterback, or maybe Kyler Murray. That actually, now that I think about it, I think that's who we were talking about. But you're immediately taking away massive parts of the field because of, I mean, just solely based on your physical stature. And I think that's a disadvantage. Now, again, it doesn't mean you can't do great things in the NFL. There's no one saying that you have to be this tall to ride this ride. Like, you can be a good quarterback. I mean, look at guys like Doug Flutie, look at Drew Brees. But again, Drew Brees had a great career. I've seen some people mention him among the league's best of all time, but I don't think he's anywhere close to that. And I think, look, part of his limitations was his size. I mean, as great as he was, he maximized his ability given his stature relative to the rest of the NFL. And, he started his career when linemen were a pretty solid not a solid 335, but a wide and rotund 325, not this 325 of all muscle.
Right, or Von Miller chasing you down from behind, pretty much faster than you do. And also Drew Brees was incredibly accurate, so he made up for it with that. Exactly. And the thing about the one advantage I'll give Russell Wilson over the other short quarterbacks is he's fairly thick. He's not small.
Well, I mean, he trains 20 hours a day, man.
Well, at least, so he's got to be, jacked up at some point, right? I mean, if I was
how about real quick, because now that you mentioned Russell Wilson, this reminded me of what he said recently after he got traded. This was a week or so ago. At that point, he had already watched every single game of the Broncos 3 times, John. That's how dedicated he was. Wow. 3 times each. Come on, Russell. I mean, I'm a little biased because, again, I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson fan. So anytime he says silly stuff like this, I'm obviously always going to harp on him. But dude, come on, man, you don't have to. you don't have to overinflate yourself. You know what I mean? Like the media
Hmm.
is going to do it enough. Your play is good enough that you're going to get praise and all that stuff. Stop lying. Stop getting up in front of the camera and just, blatantly lying, because you know what? It makes me feel like he thinks we're stupid enough to believe it. Like if he says it, like what's his name on Twitter, Sam Hawk Badger or whatever the hell he is now. Who I'm talking about, biggest Russell Wilson fan in the world. Um, I feel like he's speaking to them, saying like, yeah, and they're gonna eat that up. Oh, Russell he obviously trained 20 hours a day, and it's like, no, that's impossible. Like, come on, like, stop it.
Well,
So
he always has the feel of he wants to be the teacher's pet. And I think that was a problem in Seattle, especially early. The likes of Richard Sherman and Bobby Wagner, I think they kind of like chuckled at him. I mean, even when he left Seattle, what, 2, 3 weeks ago, Bobby Wagner put something out on Twitter that wasn't exactly a compliment. So and there's a guy who played with him for 10 years. So I don't know how beloved he was by his teammates. I think they kind of got tired of his act. And now
well,
he's in a new situation, so it might work for a few years.
well, and look, I mean, he's an oddball. I mean, we all get that. I mean, I think he would even say that he's a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
odd person. It just the way he carries himself, everything like that. He's very
Corny.
very
He's
very
corny.
very
Yeah.
corny with a large side of arrogance. And like and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's what honestly rubs me wrong, is like, it's very not assuming, like, again, he's very soft spoken, so like, sometimes the just absolute over the top arrogance kind of goes over our heads. But
Right.
that's what he is. And we talk about it all the time. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and I think Aaron Rodgers tiptoes that line very much. I think Russell Wilson goes way over that line, because what happened was when they went to the Super Bowls, those back-to-back Super Bowls, they won one, lost one. Obviously, Russell Wilson got a lot of the attention. He was a late round draft pick, relatively late round draft pick, came out of nowhere. Wasn't
Mm-hmm.
expected to start, and then progressively brought this team to two Super Bowls, and it became about him. Let Russ cook. Oh, Russell Wilson, he's this great thing. Da 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 da. And I think over time, that became more and more true. Although the reality of it was that that team was truly a defensive juggernaut, and early on, that's what they were, and that's why they succeeded. I mean, to me, it's not a coincidence that they haven't been back to an NFC Championship game since 2014. Now, if they were
Mm-hmm.
regularly, I mean, you don't necessarily have to win another Super Bowl, but if they were in the NFC Championship game several of the last few years, or maybe they went back to another Super Bowl, that tells me, okay, without this, all time defense, Russell Wilson can still carry this team.
Yep.
I haven't seen it since. Like he puts up nice numbers. Like he has great highlight plays, which again, I mean, when you can show him scrambling around and then throwing that like high arcing pass to Tyler Lockett, that makes up for everything that he does wrong and falls short of, pun intended. So it's, to me, I'm not convinced that he's a guy that can elevate another team. I think he's a really good quarterback that relies heavily on his surrounding cast. And he's had some talented offensive players in Seattle. I understand the offensive line hasn't been great, but he's a guy who, what, 2 seasons ago got sacked 40 times. 40 times, John. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think Tom Brady's been sacked 40 times in his entire career.
Yeah, it
Again,
doesn't seem that
obviously
way.
he has, but you know what I'm saying. I'm exaggerating a little bit to make a point, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Russell.
Yeah, I mean, he had Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
Enough said. That guy was a monster in the postseason.
Marshawn Lynch, I mean, we already talked about the defense. He had Marshawn Lynch. I mean, he had some good receivers. Doug Baldwin was good. Obviously, we talk about Tyler Lockett, another guy who kind of came out of nowhere. DK Metcalf. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
talk to him about anyone in New England, and he's the greatest receiver of all time because the Patriots passed on him.
Yeah.
So there's been plenty of talent, and I'm, to be honest with you, I'm blank. There's another pretty big time receiver that they had in their early run, and I'm completely blanking.
Well, he had Jimmy Graham later at
Well,
tight
he had
end.
Jimmy. Well, look, I'm not even going to give him. I'm not a big Jimmy Graham fan either. I think he's just a big body with tennis rackets for hands. So
Yeah.
that's how I think of Jimmy Graham. So, uh, he's essentially a poor man's Travis Kelce. Like there was a time where Jimmy Graham wanted, people wanted to put him up there with Rob Gronkowski, and that's even more laughable in my opinion than putting Travis Kelce up there. At least I respect Travis Kelce's offensive game. I think
Oh yeah.
Jimmy Graham was more a product of Drew Brees than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
but anyways, that's beside the point. I know our friend Kyle Senra certainly is not a big fan of Jimmy Graham either, so I'm sure he'll agree with me. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, like, look, Russell's going to have a good team around him in Denver. How good, I don't know yet because we just haven't seen anything. And I say it all the time. If you're sitting there saying definitively this is what they're going to be, then I say you're full of bleep because, well, the NFL is not that predictable. I mean, look at this offseason. Look at game to game. I mean, let's put it this way: big picture, it's more predictable. Let's put it that way. Game to game, week to week, it's not so much. Meaning like individual performances against certain teams, so on and so forth. Like I think we can look at the landscape of the NFL and say, well, I think very safely we can say, well, Buffalo, probably Tampa, Los Angeles, the Rams, that is. Those are the teams that are going to be in the championship round, perhaps, at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
year. I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. There's a few other teams in the mix, and we're going to talk about them here in just a minute because I think there is plenty of uncertainty, but week to week, we have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know how good Tua is going to end up being with this new roster. Do I think Miami's going to go out and win a Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. Not this year. Um, whether or not Tua is great or not doesn't matter. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I don't know about his individual performance or anything like that. So, what I do know, though, John, is two teams, and we're going to get back to these two receivers, obviously Tyreek Hill and, of course, Devontae Adams last week. Um, Two all-pro receivers got traded within days of each other from two teams that, last week we're talking about those two teams among the near certainties to compete on championship weekend. I would not bet on either of them right now. And that's in addition, we talk about Tyreek Hill, but the Chiefs have at least added some to this mix. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, he's a fine receiver. I mean, he's not going to come close to doing what Tyreek Hill did, but the Packers have seen yet another receiver go, and perhaps their second best one in Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who signed with the Chiefs yesterday, late afternoon. So, um, not to pile on your guy, John, but go back to his statement that I've kind of harped on all season. People come to Green Bay to win shit. Well, guess what? He's had two receivers willingly choose to leave in the last year.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. We were sitting there, really trying to figure out how you're going to replace 29 touchdowns and 2,900 yards over the last 30 games. Well, you got to do that now and also replace what Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And I know he gets a lot of slack, but he was a pretty darn good receiver for this team and certainly is going to be missed on that offense.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Lazard is now the top receiver, followed by Randall Cobb, who I think is my age.
Yeah, I was going to say, is Alan Lazard the only receiver?
The only receiver they have right now, and they had drafted Amari Rodgers in the third round last year. He played sparingly, so maybe he'll step up in his second year. There's always Sterling Sharp to come back. He's only 55 years old.
Yeah,
Greg Jennings, Donald Driver.
Maybe then he can finally get into the Hall of Fame. Good God.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big proponent of Sterling Sharp being in the Hall of Fame. He was the second best receiver in football for 5 to 6 years, just slightly behind Jerry Rice. He was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Green Bay always seems to produce wide receivers. Now, in the last 30 years, they've had two all-time great quarterbacks, so that's helped. But we have to see what they do in the draft. Obviously, they have 4 of the top 60 picks. I would assume they use at least one, maybe 2 wide receivers. I don't know what else is out there. OBA is still kind of dangling out there, but is he going to go to Green Bay and the number one guy? I don't know if he's up for that at this point in his career. He's probably going to stay with the Rams, or maybe he goes to Kansas City, or maybe he goes to Tampa Bay. Who knows? It seems like there's a carousel, and every third receiver goes to Kansas City or Tampa Bay, and why not? You play with Mahomes and Brady. So, yeah, no, I think that the Packers are in dire need of receiving help. He'll throw to his backs. Robert Tonyan should be back healthy. He's a good tight end. But, yeah, you need some sort of threat at wide receiver, especially with Devontae Adams. What made him so special is that he could really beat you at all different levels, but he was like a first down machine. When it was 3rd and 6, you knew you going to him, and
red zone
even
too.
Though
I mean,
red zone too. He was as lethal a weapon as we've seen in the NFL over the last 5 years, and he's gone. So that's going to be tough to replace with one guy.
That's my biggest concern because, John, and trust me, this was very much a point of conversation during the MVP discussion. This Packers team wasn't, firing on all cylinders offense either. They were barely. I think they literally finished 10th in points. So that's concerning because it's not like they were like number one offense last year. Okay, you can kind of figure, all right, maybe they're going to take a step back, no doubt. But the step back's not going to be as pronounced. Like, they may fall back to being like the 20th rank. If you're like the 15th to 20th ranked offense in this league, forget about it. You're not competing for a Super Bowl. Because I know people sit there, oh, defense win. No. Offense wins championships. Defenses just help. Like that cliche, that old saying, it's just not true anymore. I mean, everything we know about this game of football says, well, it favors the offense and it favors quarterbacks, and it's heavily reliant on having a great quarterback to be successful. Someone made this ridiculous statement, John, last week on Twitter, and I know I've said that plenty of times before, that like barely any elite quarterbacks have won Super Bowls over the last 20 years, and I or 30 years, and I about fell out of my seat because right off the top of my head, I read off, I believe it was 12 names that encompass 23 of the last 30 Super Bowls, and all of them are elite quarterbacks. So,
well, one guy won 7.
Yeah, well, right? So 7. Peyton Manning won 2.
I think he's elite. Yeah, he's
elite. I'd say
yeah.
So. John Elway is in there. He won 2. Went to Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger won 2. Went to 3.
Yeah.
There's several. I mean, I didn't put Joe Flacco in there, obviously. I mean, come on now.
Although I tell you, he had an incredible run that year.
Oh no, well but that's the thing. You could argue that his playoff run might have been the greatest singular. I mean, one of the best. I think there has been a few since then, but it was one of the greatest individual playoff runs of all time. But no one in their right mind is going to sit there and say, I mean, maybe, kind of ironically saying elite, Joe Flacco is elite. I kind of miss those days, but it's absurd, like how often a team is a quarterback is needed. A great quarterback is needed to win. It's not about defense. Defenses obviously come up with big plays, and they're the most noticeable, John, because they're rarer. You know what I mean? Everyone remembers the interception on the goal line. By the way, Malcolm Butler's back with the Patriots, and that just blew up, talking points for the last 5 years for some knuckleheads in Boston. But that's besides the point. Those plays are just far more memorable because they happen far less often. Tom Brady going up and down the field and shredding a defense happens all the time. So you're so numb to that. So he can do that against Seattle, the greatest defense of that like 5-year stretch, and no one bats an eye. But Malcolm Butler bails the defense out after allowing, what was it, 40 yards in about 30 seconds? Like that. Remember that first play before the 2-minute warning? Russell Wilson literally just lobbed it to a wide open, who was that on? Was it Marshawn? It might have been.
Lynch.
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah,
he took the little wheel route right up the field, and all of a sudden it's like 2-minute warning, and you're inside like the 40-yard line. You're like, what the hell? Yeah. But people will sit there and say that the defense bailed Brady out. And it's like, no, look, people remember those plays because they're more memorable, because they just happen far less often. Brady shredding a defense happens every single time he walks on the field. So, I don't know how I got onto that tangent about Seattle and New England, but Tom Brady. But
we'll forgive you.
Well, no, I mean the point. I mean, I think the bigger point is like we talked on Wednesday, kind of focusing more on the AFC and kind of how we see these teams and everything. But I would imagine that's changed since then for both of us. Like I'm very unsure about what Kansas City is going to be, because here's my biggest criticism, and I'll eventually turn this into a positive for Chiefs fans, John.
Mhm.
So one of my criticisms of Mahomes is that I think he's not that accurate. So what he does is, well, he relies a lot on athleticism and Tyreek Hill. You throw the ball up. Hey, it's Tyreek Hill. What happened in that 13-second drive against Buffalo? Hey, Tyreek Hill, boom, 50 yards up the sideline. So, okay, that doesn't tell me he's accurate. It doesn't tell me someone, said something about him being a great deep ball thrower. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's just kind of look, Tyreek Hill's down the field. I'm going to throw it. And, how many times, if I had a nickel for every time I talked about a pass where he was wide open and he still had to do like a 180 to turn around and catch the ball and awkwardly run up the field. So to me, I'm like, all right, I'm concerned. That element of the game is not there for Patrick Mahomes now. On the
Mhm.
flip side, though, it will force him, hopefully. I mean, you better hope that he doesn't keep doing that stuff because then you're going to turn into a lot more interceptions and turnovers and bad offensive plays. But the silver lining is maybe it finally forces him to stop with hero ball. And
Mhm.
that's one of his biggest problems. He bails on the pocket way too early. He's not accurate enough to trust himself to sit there and go through his progressions. I mean, he doesn't read the defenses well enough to do that. And then he runs around and says, well, worst case scenario, Tyreek Hill is going to make a play. Well, guess what?
Right.
He's not going to do that anymore. So maybe it forces him to stop doing that. Now, again, I'll go back to negative. I don't know if he can, though. That's the thing. Like, it's all well and good if it forces him to start playing the position more efficiently. But the other question is, I don't know if he's capable because I just don't think he's that accurate of a quarterback. So, what happens when you don't have a receiver who can make up for those inaccuracies? What happens when, over the last several years, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey have been within the top 5, 6 of yards after catch every single year? What happens when that half of that element or half of that equation is gone for the Chiefs offense? Which, again, kind of like Green Bay, they weren't a firing on all cylinders unit last year. They struggled immensely throughout the season, and now you're taking away their best offensive player. That's concerning, and I don't know. I think Los Angeles might be better than them, and you know what? Las Vegas might be better than them right now. As crazy as that sounds, and we would have probably laughed at that notion even a week ago.
Denver too. I mean,
Yeah,
Denver's added
yeah,
talent as well, and
Denver too.
I mean that division is insane. I mean, just look at the talent that the teams have added. And Kansas City, of course, lost a superstar, but they've come back with a couple of signings at wide receiver. Obviously, that doesn't even equal Tyreek Hill, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about
Well, also
a division with Derek Carr's the worst
factor in Travis Kelsey being 33 years old.
Yeah, he's been durable, and then he's been productive for 6, 7 years. So at some point, yeah, the production will start to wane. But I mean, Derek Carr's the worst quarterback in that division. That's saying that that's a really strong division because he's pretty damn good. Yeah, that division is going to be great. You might see 11-6 win that division because they'll beat each other up and go 3-3 against each other, and then you'll see a 10-7 team, a 9-8, 8-9, and it'll be coming down to the wire to see who wins that division.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I think it's. I have no idea. I mean, again, 2 weeks ago, I would, we talked about it. I would have said, oh, yeah, no, Kansas City's probably still the best team in that division. I don't think they've gotten better, but, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I actually think they've gotten a lot worse because not only have they lost Tyreek Hill, they're also losing defensive talent too. And that's kind of been lost in this mix here. It's like no longer do you have Tyrann Mathieu. That's gone. You moved on from that. I know they're in the hunt for guys like Stephon Gilmore, which I think would be a good signing for them.
Mhm.
But your team has been weakened defensively and significantly weakened offensively. And like I said, I just have a little cause for concern about what the offense is going to look like. Is Patrick Mahomes going to be able to evolve his game? One of the great things about, and this is kind of, just another example of putting this whole Patriots run with Brady and Belichick into perspective and how hard it is to win consistently in the NFL. And we talked about it over the during the playoffs that, this was Kansas City's last best opportunity to win a Super Bowl, and boy, has that come to fruition more so than I ever imagined when I said it, John. Because since then, we've seen them, just absolutely not show up in a playoff game for yet another year. And now we see this exodus of players and this addition of other players within their division, not just the conference. So um, certainly a lot of concern for the Chiefs moving forward. And same goes for Green Bay. The good thing for Green Bay is at least they're in the NFC, and it's not that competitive,
Mhm.
or at least not that deep on paper. I mean, who knows what's going to happen during the season? Who again? Maybe Marcus Mariota is just the second coming of Joe Montana, or third coming of Joe Montana. You know what I mean? He has a Joe Montana like career. He goes off and wins 3 Super Bowls for the fact. Oh, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I doubt that, but you never know what's going to happen. The point is, I think the NFC is a lot weaker. I at this point though, I only think there's 2 teams in Tier 1. That's the Buccaneers and the Rams. Because right now, I have Green Bay kind of just floating in limbo. I have no clue what they're going to be next year.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the receivers room, it's very shallow, and you're going to need to address that. And it's not easy to count on rookies to connect with veteran quarterbacks. That's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. It's supposed to be a deep wide receivers group coming out of the draft, but again, when you get a veteran quarterback, they like ready-made guys, and certainly that's not going to happen when you're drafting a 21 or a 22-year-old. I mean, they have the 22nd pick in the first round. That's where Minnesota was able to get Justin Jefferson 2 years ago. So if you're as fortunate as Minnesota was 2 years ago, maybe you've got something, but that's a lot to wish for.
Yeah, and when you have that urgency and that pressure that's on Rodgers, just knowing that his career is winding down, like there's added pressure that, like, it's not just like, oh well, we'll get him next year. Well, who knows if next year is
Yeah.
going to be next year? You know what I mean? There's that added urgency to all of this. So look, there's plenty of time to make moves. Like you mentioned, the deepness of the receiver group in this draft is obviously appealing, certainly for teams like Green Bay and maybe even the Chiefs, even though, excuse me, I'm boring myself. Apparently, no, I would never do that. I find myself very entertaining. Um, no, but even Kansas City, at least they've made some moves to replace some of those missing pieces. But even then, it's hard to imagine this team somehow being better than what they were last year. And I thought they were okay last year, which again, if you're talking about the Chiefs team of a couple of years ago, where they were clearly the top team in the league, or at least during the regular season, or coming into the regular season, that's different. This team was pretty good last season, and even before any of this, we were making the argument that Buffalo is better. I think Buffalo is clearly better now. I don't even think it's close. I mean, I think should start talking about maybe Buffalo and another team as the prohibitive AFC Championship game favorites, because I just don't see a way for Kansas City to do it, because I can't. First of all, there's no way I can't imagine a scenario in which they get the number 1 overall seed. Any team in that division,
Right.
first of all. And I was thinking that before they traded Tyreek Hill. Now, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you in December if it's even a remote possibility, and then we'll discuss it. But I don't see that happening, and then I don't see them winning 3 games to get to the Super Bowl, let alone having to do 1 at least on the road, perhaps maybe
Hmm.
2, and then having to go to Buffalo. So I just, again, it's going to be tough for the Chiefs. I mean, they have some time to again retool. What I was getting at, I think, before I kind of went on a tangent, was that one of the great things about the Patriots run was that, yeah, they lost players all the time. I mean, they went through a lot of these same things. They traded marquee players, they cut players, but the most important thing for them was they were so capable. Again, give credit where credit's due, and that's the quarterback, from being able to evolve consistently. I mean, how many different that's why it's so silly when people call him Tom Brady's system quarterback, because I'm sitting there going through the history of his career, and you've watched that team go from a conservative run first offense to a two tight end, now no huddle. Remember the hurry up? Like, I mean, that wasn't necessarily not just hurry up, but like controlled, methodical hurry up offense. No huddle is probably a better way
Right.
to put it. Like they started that, and then when everyone started to pick up on that, they shifted to two tight ends. And you can't
Hmm.
just do that. You can't just implement an offense because, well, guess what? Not every quarterback's capable of literally running every single offense that you throw at them. And that's how the Patriots were able to not only rebuild, but also remain competitive and rebuild. Not just competitive, but like, again, that 10 years, we talk about that, the drought, the 10-year drought. 8 of those years they were in the championship game. Twice they went to the Super Bowl. And you throw in the undefeated season and all that. So they were, I mean, you can make the case that during that 10-year span, they were clearly the best team in the NFL, and they didn't win a single Super Bowl. That's how crazy good they were. But to me, I see that I'm like, yeah, they were able to do that because they were so the ability to constantly evolve, not just season to season, John, but like week to week. Like, remember in 2010, you trade Randy Moss after week 4, and all of a sudden your offense shifts from a over the top deep ball shot to Randy Moss to middle of the field, attack the middle of the field with Dion Branch overnight. Just like that.
Hmm.
Boom. And we're talking about teams having to acclimate to new players and all that. They did that at a flip of a hat. And you could and like nothing was better than, that I one of my favorite games from their run was going up against Minnesota. Stout run defense. You could not run the ball against them. What did they do? They came out 5 wide, started the game, no huddle. Boom, up and down the field. And that's what they did. Can Kansas City do that? I don't know. I don't know because their offense. I mean, we praise Andy Reid for his playmaking ability, and I think he's one of the best play callers, offensive play callers in the league, and offensive minds. I mean, how much play calling he actually does, who knows? But it was heavily reliant on the skill of Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill because we
Hmm.
saw a lot of the same things start to play out the last year of Alex Smith. And I think most people sit there and say, "Oh, well, Patrick Mahomes is clearly a better quarterback than Alex Smith." Well, no, I think it's. Let's just say, if I'm a team, John, I would much rather put all my eggs in one basket, being the quarterback, as opposed to skill players. And I think that's my big picture point. Can Patrick Mahomes be that guy now moving forward? Now he's going to have to prove it. Now he's going to have to do it without Tyreek Hill and with again, a diminishing Travis Kelsey. So we'll see. We'll see, John. I'll be interested
Yeah.
to see how it plays out, and you know, going up
It
against
doesn't.
that
It doesn't
division.
last.
It's yeah,
It doesn't last forever, and what the Patriots were able to accomplish is pretty incredible, and something we'll probably never see again. And as my good friend Ron Borges often said, Tom Brady was the parish priest. He forgave all sins because
yes,
he's the constant who just plowed through with whatever you needed to get done. He took care of it. Look, the man went to a new team in a different conference in the middle of a pandemic and won a Super Bowl.
I
Enough
like it.
said.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It pretty much it pretty much wraps up who he is in general. And you know what else, John? You know what else that doesn't last forever? The show. We have to say goodbye.
unfortunately,
We have to say goodbye. No, I actually, I gotta go outside, maybe go down to the beach, get some sun. I mean, I'm starting to, I kind of look like Nosferatu with hair right now. So I really, really got to get out there and get some color and kind of get rid of, make it actually feel like I'm living in Florida here. But we will say goodbye for the weekend. So which means we have 2 days off. So who knows what's going to happen between now and Monday, but we will be here Monday to break it all down. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at Full Press Radio, at Full Press NFL on Twitter, and of course go to fullpresscoverage.com and enjoy all the great content. Have a great day, folks.